There's a moment in every cinematic universe where you can feel the pieces starting to lock into place, where a casting announcement stops being just news and starts feeling like the beginning of something real. That's exactly where we are with Supergirl right now. Milly Alcock is stepping into the cape. And if you've been paying any attention to how James Gunn is building this DC universe from the ground up, you already know that this isn't just another superhero casting. This is a deliberate, long-game move. And the way it's unfolding tells us a lot about where the DCU is actually headed. Let's start with what we know. Milly Alcock, who absolutely owned every scene she was in on House of the Dragon, is playing Kara Zor-El. Her version of Supergirl isn't being launched with her own solo film right out of the gate. Instead, she's being introduced through Superman. That's the entry point. That's how Gunn is threading her into the fabric of this universe first, by anchoring her to a character and a world the audience already understands. And then, once that foundation is set, she expands into her own standalone story under director Craig Gillespie. That structure is intentional. And honestly, it's smart. Think about what that does for the character emotionally. Kara arrives in a world where Kal-El, her cousin, has already become Superman. He's already the symbol. He's already the legend. And she has to figure out where she fits in a world that doesn't need saving by her specifically because someone else who looks just like her and carries the same bloodline is already doing it. That tension right there is rich storytelling territory. The shadow of Superman isn't just a backdrop for her story. It's the entire emotional engine of it. Milly Alcock has already spoken about the dynamic between Kara and Clark, and what's interesting is the way she frames it. There's something almost frustrating about Kara's situation. She was older than Kal-El when they left Krypton. She was supposed to be the one watching over him. And instead, she arrives to find that he's grown up, built a life, become a hero, and she's the one who's new here. That reversal of expectation is genuinely fascinating. It's not the female version of Superman's story people might expect. It's something stranger and more personal than that. And that's before we even get to the crossover conversation. Milly Alcock was recently asked about potential team-ups and crossover possibilities within the DCU. And rather than shutting it down or being overly diplomatic, she was genuinely open to it. She talked about it with real curiosity, the kind that suggests these conversations aren't just happening in fan forums. They're happening in the actual creative space around this project. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because the DCU under James Gunn is being designed, from the very beginning, as an interconnected universe. Not in the Marvel sense of throw in a post-credit scene and call it crossover. This feels more deliberate. Gunn has been pretty open about wanting characters to feel like they exist in the same world before major crossover events force them together. That's a different philosophy. It means when Supergirl eventually ends up alongside other DCU figures, it won't feel jarring or manufactured. It'll feel earned. So who does that include? Let's think about this honestly. Jimmy Olsen is one name that keeps coming up in relation to Supergirl's world, and not without reason. In the comics, Jimmy and Kara have a history that goes well beyond Superman's pal. There's a warmth there, a kind of peer energy that's different from what she has with Clark. Clark is complicated. He's family, but he's also a symbol. Jimmy is just human, literally and figuratively. And for a character like Kara, who is trying to find her place in a world that already has a version of her story, having a connection to someone who sees her separately from Superman matters. It gives her an identity outside of that comparison. And then there's the broader question of where Supergirl lands in the structural hierarchy of the DCU. There's been real speculation about whether she could eventually be connected to something like the Justice Gang, which Gunn has teased as a more street-level or unconventional grouping of heroes compared to the Justice League. If Kara's journey is about stepping out of Superman's shadow and defining herself on her own terms, placing her alongside a more grounded or unexpected roster of heroes actually makes a lot of narrative sense. She doesn't need to be in the big league immediately. She needs to earn it. Or better, choose it. Craig Gillespie directing the solo film is also a detail worth sitting with. This is the guy who directed Tanya, and Cruella, both films about women who exist in systems that weren't built for them, who push back against expectations, and who are morally complex in ways that make you root for them even when you're not entirely sure you should. If that sensibility carries into Supergirl, we might be getting something genuinely unexpected from superhero film. Not dark and brooding, not wide-eyed and earnest. Something sharper, more complicated. That's the version of Supergirl the DCU needs right now. Because here's the thing about Kara Zor-El that doesn't always get said clearly enough. She's not Superman with a gender swap. She's a fundamentally different kind of story. Superman was raised on Earth. His values, his identity, his sense of hope, all of it was shaped by Kansas, by Jonathan and Martha Kent, by growing up human. Kara remembers Krypton. She lost it consciously. She carries a grief that Clark doesn't fully share, and that changes everything about who she is and why she fights. That's not a small distinction. That's the entire emotional core of the character. And Milly Alcock, based on everything we've seen from her work, understands how to carry grief without making it the loudest thing in the room. She plays characters who feel things deeply but don't perform it for the audience. That restraint, that internal quality, it's exactly what this version of Supergirl is going to need. As for future possibilities, the honest answer is that the DCU is still being built. Characters like Nightwing are rumored to be on the horizon. The interconnected threads are just starting to form. But the pattern Gunn is establishing suggests that Supergirl won't stay in her own corner of the universe for long. The way these stories are being architected, with characters introduced in one project and then naturally expanding into others. Kara's journey is going to touch other timelines, other heroes, other conflicts. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when and how. And that how is the exciting part. Because if Gunn and Gillespie are serious about making Kara her own fully realized character before they start putting her in rooms with other heroes, then whenever that crossover moment comes, it's going to land differently. It'll carry actual weight. We'll know who she is. We'll know what she's lost and what she wants and what she's afraid of. And then watching her exist alongside Superman or Jimmy or whoever else the DCU is cooking up, that won't just be fan service. That'll be storytelling. Milly Alcock stepping into this role at this particular moment in the DCU's timeline isn't an accident. It's a signal. The universe is expanding. The characters are getting more complex. And Supergirl, this version of her, this story, has the potential to be one of the most emotionally compelling things DC puts on screen in the next 5 years. The pieces are moving, and this is only the beginning.